Here we go.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, hi.
Good.
I think that might be my cue. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to something that we've never done before. Welcome to Beyond the Thinking Mind. I am so excited to be here with you today, and more than just getting to be here with you all, I get to be here with some of my favorite people in the whole world. And they're on stage with me right now in this virtual portal that we've created. Hello, hello. Please say hi in the chat. Let us know where you are. Where are you tuning in from? It's always fun to kind of feel our hearts connecting around the globe. That's what it feels like to me in this virtual reality, is I can feel the heart connection. So where are you? Say hi and welcome everybody. Oh my goodness. We have Texas and Michigan, Alaska, France, New Jersey. Whoa, Australia, London, Houston, lots of California, Central Maine, Wisconsin, Colorado. Beautiful. Welcome, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. So, um, this is a divine moment. I really had some important connections and conversations that led to wanting to create Beyond the Thinking Mind. Mostly, it wasn't a lot of thinking, it was a lot of feeling and a lot of um, inspiration and desire to start to bring words in a new way, maybe. Not a new way, maybe remembering an old way, a more embodied way. And I felt like the best way I could do that was to talk to people like the people here on the panel who are some colleagues and good friends of mine and mentors who I know are brilliant and who are willing to be on the edge of something. When I say that, I mean it's kind of mysterious what's going on here. I'm not totally sure what's going to arise, and I think that's what makes it really beautiful. And when I was sitting with this, I was sort of feeling like, for me right now, science and spirit, they're like two friends, and they don't speak the same language, but they really want to. And as they start to communicate, they find their language and they realize that they're not that different, after all. So that's sort of what comes to mind for me and heart. I want to lay the ground rules. One, nothing is off limits here as far as topics go or what arises. And I would just ask for kindness, that we hold each other with loving kindness. And I'm not worried about that at all, but I think it's worth saying, and that includes everybody who's watching and, is part of the audience, because you are as important as everyone here. I will let you know that you'll see my dear friend Lara on. Lara is supporting us today for this event. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much, Lara. And if you need panelists or anyone in the audience, if you need any support, you can reach out to Lara. She's amazing. She's here for you. I will also let you know that there's a special moment in a few hours that we will come to where we'll really be inviting attendees to step in as a panelist and to ask questions. So we'll do a Q&A around the last hour today. And if you have something arising within you over this time that you want to bring forward, you want to let Lara know, so you can let her know your question that you want to be asking, and then Lara's going to be able to bring you on, and we can hopefully see you and at least hear you and be with you in the space. Is that everything? I think so. So I will sort of introduce the speakers here that you see. I know you can't see the attendees, but please feel free to communicate through the chat with us and each other. And I'll just say a few things of what I know about these amazing humans before you, who you can see. And first, I'll just start with Lisa. Lisa Iverson is here with us today. Um, what I know about you, Lisa, is that you're a brilliant psychotherapist and family constellation facilitator, author and director of the Center for Ancestral Blueprints. And I know that I haven't spent a lot of time in your company, although I feel like I have because I have known your name and I've known your heart for a really long time through family and through constellation work. So I'm so excited that you're here with us today, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. It's really an honor to be with all of you, really.
Thank you. And I can't wait to hear more. Ancestral Blueprint for me is like so juicy. I just can't wait to dive into to hear more about that through you. And Dan Cohen, who is a PhD and what I would call a healer of generational trauma, the co-founder of Seeing with Your Heart with his beloved Emily Blefeld, and author of I Carry Your Heart in My Heart. Dan has also been a very dear mentor of mine for, I guess I want to say the last year, although I will let you know that when I was probably about 19 years old, I found myself at a weekend constellation, a constellation weekend with you, Dan, where that moment has never left me, and your wisdom that you brought forward through all of us and through yourself at that time was sort of it was divine. It was like this divine opening for me. So I am beyond grateful that you're here and just to know you and get to be with you in this space.
Well, thanks so much, Christina. It's great to be here. I have small but really wonderful memories of that weekend, and it was really special for me as well. And I'm really glad to see what's going to unfold today. To be on this panel and be inside this conversation is I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Whew. Lotus Sky. Lotus Sky is a mystic, shamanic guide and musical channel, and one of my closest friends. And please do find Lotus Sky's music if you can on Spotify and probably other places, because the experience, my personal experience of your music, which I believe we may get a chance to hear some of today, it is life-changing, and it Lotus Sky sings into your soul. I've never experienced anything like the channel that you have, Lotus Sky. So thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor to have you.
So excited to be here, Christina. I'm so excited for the conversations we get to have, guided by spirit in this way. And it's an honor to be invited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah Poet, who it's so wonderful to see your face here. Yeah, live in real life. It was just a divine connection that a dear sister of mine reached out and said, "Do you know who Sarah Poet is?" And I thought, well, I must find out because first of all, that name is so beautiful. I was like, no, is she a writer? Is she a poet? Masculine, feminine coach and medicine woman for modern times. And my understanding is that you do a lot with women and couples and leadership and business. And I'm so excited to learn more. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's an honor. I'm so glad this came together. It's so good to meet you all, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to invite everybody to start by closing your eyes. I think that might be nice. So let's go ahead and do that for a moment. And I'll just take you through just a very brief sort of tuning into the body. I think that's a nice way to start something called Beyond the Thinking Mind. So right now, just sort of sense or feel or imagine that any of the energy that feels like it's in your head or above your head or sort of, you know, kind of prickly or mental, just allow that energy to drop down into your heart space. And notice what it feels like to allow that energy to drop down into your heart. Notice what it feels like inside your body. What sensations do you sense? Sometimes it feels like the body comes to life all of a sudden, or is turned on, activated. And I just invite you to take a couple of deep breaths in and out of your heart. So breathing in and out. And one more breath in and out of your heart space. And very gently, you can go ahead and open your eyes when you feel ready. All right. So, in part, the way I imagine this at least starting is that I'll ask a few questions to our speakers and we're going to follow the flow. And sometimes you'll all have an answer, and sometimes one person will have the answer. And my invitation is that you play with being beyond the thinking mind. You know, this is really an experiment for all of us. So those of you who are with us watching and also the speakers here. So the first thing that I would love to ask you all is, what is the first memory that you have of a mystical or spiritual experience? Maybe as a child. And anyone can answer when you feel like it.
I guess I'll go first. I'm never afraid to go first. And Christina, you commented on my name, and my name is actually one of my first mystical experiences. And so I had this tree that was like in the backyard, but it belonged to the neighbor. So I would sneak into this like grove of nature space in suburbia, and you know, no one would like miss me for a while. And I was a little girl and went across the neighbor's yard down the other block, and I saw a mailbox with the name Poet on it, and the sun hit it. And I was like conceptualizing that all of these mailboxes meant that there were all of these families in these houses and they all had stories, but I felt like I was in the wrong one. Like my family, like I didn't like what was going on in my house with my mailbox and that name. And I knew that the Poet was supposed to be my name. And so that was my whole life. I carried that. And then my soul instructed me to take that name in 2018. And now it's my legal name. So that's one of my first memories of mystical experience. And I didn't ever meet the poets. Like, I don't know who lived in that house. It was not like I wanted to be them. I just knew that that was my name. And I was in a journey one time, and the guide said, "Great job picking up on that cue that was actually your name." So,
Wow,
yeah, thank you.
that's brilliant. I love that. Thank you.
I'll go next. I was looking for a particular memory, mystical memory. And it was in middle school, actually. I was attending an all-girls Catholic Opus Dei school. And if you know about Opus Dei, it's like a religious sect that is in many ways speak of perfection and living in perfection as an embodiment of the divine. And so we wore like long uniforms, like the Handmaid's Tale, and we all like walked in a particular way, posture, gait, like the sentiment, the intentions were a little skewed, but it was very prayerful. That whole energy was very prayerful. Obviously we can go into a whole conversation about this, but I'm not going to. But I was always a bit of a rebel, and always got called in, and I always felt that I was very interested in the mysticism and magic in the teachings of the Christian faith. The things of parting like the oceans and turning a staff into a snake and the burning bush, like those mystical experiences always took to me. I just found them magical. And I had a really a deep fascination with magic, elemental bending, like nature connection, like the avatar energy, right? And it was raining at one point, and I was trying to get to across the field, and I just remember, I don't remember how old I was. I think maybe I was in like fourth grade, So, and I remember walking through, and I was feeling the life of the light rain and the wind and the clouds. I was just feeling it. And as I was feeling the aliveness of this, and it's making me realize that connection, because now I'm a shamanic guide and we work with the elements. But I remember having a conversation with the wind itself, and I would ask it to blow less. Like, can you blow a little less so that my hair doesn't like get messed up? And it did. And I was like, whoa, it actually listened to me. Was that an accident? So I literally went out and talked to the sky and asked it to go blow farther, stronger, and then calm down and blow left or right. And I would just imagine, I just like saw myself playing with the elements and seeing it respond. And I thought it was just me, the field, and the sky. And then as I was really in it, like just like, oh, okay, and then gentle and okay, and strong, and I was just like playing like a child. I heard a voice behind me. It goes, "Oh, you're playing with the elements." And I turned around, and it was the school priest in his like priest uniform, and he's just like, "Oh, you're playing with the elements." And I just felt like I got caught, like I got found out or something, like witchcraft or something. And I immediately felt so much fear and shame, embarrassment almost, that I was like, oh, this little girl playing with elements, so cute. And I immediately stopped and said nothing and walked away. And then that was my first mystical experience. And I mean, when you answered a question, I was looking for a memory, and I just remembered that experience. So thank you for that question.
Amazing.
Hmm.
Was he upset?
No,
Yeah, he
it was
was.
really sweet. He was like, oh, you're playing with the weather, like you're playing with the elements.
Great.
But I just got like really, I felt like silly. I suddenly felt silly, like, oh, this probably isn't real. And I felt like I got caught doing magic, and I felt silly doing it at that point, and interestingly now, like when I work very deeply with nature. And so, especially when I take people out on journeys and I have my guitar and I'm singing and I'm channeling, nature responds. You know, the wind blows and the birds sing and the trees move and the sky responds. You know, I have that real connection to nature. So now it's very natural for me. But then it was new.
Amazing. Wow. Feel it. Today I was saying, could someone slow the wind down in Santa Fe? It's like really intense at this time of year. So maybe Lotus, you need to come visit. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, so beautiful. Mm,
I guess I'll go next.
yeah.
For me, I was a late bloomer in this. I grew up in Manhattan at a time that was pretty fiercely anti-mystical. It was considered the high achievement of humanity in terms of science and culture. And that was a very materialistic worldview, and that the mystical, spiritual ideas were considered to have been dismissed and falsified. And so I was on the west side of Manhattan, and I took the subway up to Harlem and to go to school. I went to school in Harlem, and riding the subways in the morning up into Harlem was one of the least mystical activities imaginable. And there was no sky. There was no, you might see the moon for a minute or two between buildings. And so it wasn't until into my 20s that things started knocking on the door. And the memory that comes to mind is of one summer when I was in my 20s. I had moved to Boston, and I was summer afternoon, and I was at the Boston Common, and I was walking with a young woman who I was flirting with, and she seemed to be flirting with me a little bit. It was in that kind of unknown stage of relationship that romances all open up. And they used to be hustlers that played this 3-card Monte game on the path in the Boston Common. And they would throw all the cards on the ground. They would just take the 3 cards that they needed, and they would just throw the rest of them. So there was just this big splash of playing cards. And I went over and I just grabbed one with a kind of flourish and picked it up, and it was the Queen of Hearts. And I was very proud of myself. And this young woman was, of course, dutifully impressed. And I gave it to her as a souvenir, and she took it. That fall, I went on this big trip to Europe. I traveled for 6 months. And I was in England, I think in Cambridge, England, and I was just on the street on the sidewalk. And I looked down in front of me on the sidewalk, and there was one playing card face down on the sidewalk. And I bent over and I picked it up, and it was the Queen of Hearts. And I was slightly freaked out, and I put it in my wallet. And then a few weeks later, it happened again in Amsterdam. Again, one playing card face down on the sidewalk. And I picked it up, and this one was the Jack of Hearts. And I put that in my wallet. And it happened again in Germany a few weeks later. There was another playing card. Same thing, one card face down, looking at me on the sidewalk. I just come across it, and I pick it up, and again, it's a face card. And I was collecting these across Europe. The last one I ever found, I never found another one. I was living in Bethlehem in Palestine. I had walked from Haifa to Bethlehem on a peace pilgrimage for a Christmas pilgrimage with a group of anti-nuclear activists. And afterwards, a few friends and we rented a room in Bethlehem, and I was living there. And then I had an old childhood friend, actually from nursery school, who was a news reporter in Jerusalem. And I arranged to have dinner with him one night. And I had a bicycle, and I bicycled from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, and we met for dinner. And it was a January night at that point, so 5 months later, and it was just pouring rain, just a big cold January rainstorm. And I went back to my bicycle, and right under the pedal, there was one playing card face down, right below the pedal of my bicycle. And I stood there staring at it in disbelief. And I started to argue with it. I wouldn't pick it up right away because of the drama of the moment. Was because if I picked it up and it's the three of clubs, then, you know, whatever. But if I pick it up and if it's another face card, then, you know, it's like angelic. And I just was soaking wet. That the water just started running down my back into my underwear, and my shoes filled with water. And I stood there arguing, and the card said to me, "What do God's angels have to do to get you to believe? Why are you making them play card tricks with you? Just pick this card up. And if it's a face card, then you have to promise not to disbelieve us again. And if it's, you know, nothing, just a random card, you can just go back into your skepticism." And I went back and forth for a while, and I picked it up, and it was another queen. And I put that in my wallet. I have a collection of these, which I still have. And from that time on, really, I gave up this kind of churlish skepticism of, oh my goodness, how could that be? Oh, I was so blown away. I couldn't believe it. I just kind of dispensed with that. And I went all in with accepting that these are phenomenon that that humans can experience if they're open to them. And sometimes if they're not open to them.
So fantastic. Yeah. So what do you make of the Queen of Hearts?
Well, the Queen of Hearts was part of my call, which is around my, you know, part of my purpose is to be able to open my heart in relationship with women, and to be able to have a loving relationship with women. And at this point, which is decades later, I can say that I succeed and fail. I succeed probably a little bit more than I fail, but not, I would say maybe 2/3 to 1/3, maybe 3/4 to 1/4. I'm not sure. But I dedicate myself to learning from my failures and learning from my successes. And the core of my work is balancing the masculine and feminine energy, balancing them within our bodies and within the world system. So in a way, in between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, I sometimes feel like I'm an emissary of Mary Magdalene and doing her work. And as a man, I'm not that great. I'm probably a little bit ahead of the curve of other men, but I can't give myself too many awards because I am still of the same culture. I'm raised in the patriarchal culture, and I am privileged. But my work is to be aware of my own internal patriarchy, and to notice the internal patriarchy within the women I'm in relationship with, and also to be a loving man in all these relationships. And of course, it's conspicuous here that I'm the only man, so that's is a little bit of a illustration.
It really is. I tried. I tried really hard. I thought, oh, Dan, bless Dan for showing up. Yeah, so grateful you're here.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
It's such a blessing to hear everything that everybody's said. And I want to hear, Christina, what you would say in answer to your own question. So that's really with me. But I'm really appreciative of everything you've all said. Uh, I'll just say that for me, also a story from adulthood sits with me a lot um, as an example that I just feel moved to share. This was maybe 15 years ago, and I was just leading a lot of constellation workshops, living in the Seattle area. I still live in the Seattle area, north of Seattle. And I had been working in Atlanta for a while at that point, but making regular trips to the Atlanta area, offering constellation workshops. And um, I had met a man in Seattle, and was getting to know him again in the context of the constellation world. And when he learned that I was doing a lot of work in Atlanta, he had made an offhand comment to me that, oh, he had some family. I think his son and daughter lived there in Atlanta, and he was hoping that maybe they could come to one of my workshops someday. And but there were no logistical things that came, I didn't reach out at, busyness. It was just kind of an offhand comment. But the week that he made that comment, it was like at the beginning of the week, Monday or so, and I was flying back to Atlanta on Friday. And I flew into Atlanta that Friday night, and I went straight from the airport to the clinic where I was working. I walked into the clinic and I walked past this man who was a patient of one of the organizers, the hosts for me. There was the physician who ran this clinic, and I walked past this man and I thought, oh, I think that's his son. I just had this feeling in my body that, oh, this is his son. And so I turned around and I asked him, I said, are you, and then I called him by name, and he was rather shook up and said, yeah, how did you know that? And I said, well, I don't know. I just happened to have a conversation with your dad in Seattle, and I introduced myself. And so then I think he thought I was maybe stalking him, because it was this kind of like, out of ordinary kind of experience. So I said, call your dad, because, I'm not. So we called his dad, and then he called his sister. And so then his sister lived in the area. And then he and his sister came to the workshop that evening. And it was just part of the flow of all of our lives together. And, but, this field that we're with, that has to do with when I think of mysticism, I think of all that's in the unseen world exists before it exists in the physical world. And so it's with us all the time, just as Dan was remarking, as you've all remarked. And so logic isn't in charge, clearly. so thanks that I could offer that example. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. It reminds me recently of a client messaging me going, that moment where you get psychic information and then the next moment where you have to decide if you're going to share it or not.
Mm-hmm.
That moment comes up a lot. The more work like this you do, right? Thank you, Lisa. That's amazing. Wow. Well, I wasn't planning on answering this question. I guess, what is planning anyway? It's so funny. Talk about the thinking mind, the thinking mind tries to have it all figured out ahead of time. It's funny when it's a feeling. So when I think back to like what was one of my first, like at least first moments I can really recall of the divine. What's interesting for me is I realize as I'm feeling back into that moment, I was probably like 3 or 4 years old, maybe. And I remember, and I'm so curious. I've always want to ask other people if they've had this experience. So this is great. I can ask all of you. I had this moment, and I'm not exactly sure where I was. I was at a friend's house with my family, and I was in the bathroom. And I think I even remember stepping up on a little stool and putting my face in the mirror and having this moment where I actually looked at my face, looked into my own eyes, and I got full, it's like I came into my body for the first time. So I had this full body chills, almost like vibration through my body. And so in a way, it's sort of reverse. It's like I really related to spirit as a young person. I grew up very Catholic. I was very committed to the saints and God and Mary, and I prayed every night and every morning. And I very much thought I would be a nun from a very young age. But the fact that I looked into my own eyes and came into the body, and that felt like, I just remember I was like whipping, I was trying it again and again and again to see if I could keep making myself feel that. And it's just such a funny thing. It's almost like pre-verbal, like I don't know what I was thinking other than, is that, I remember something like, is that me? Is that what this is? I had kind of that response, and I can kind of recreate it, although I'm happy to say I'm more embodied probably now than ever, which makes me feel happy, to embrace this experience in this form. But that was trippy, whatever that was. Have you all had that experience? Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
I landed on my chin and got stitches. That's what I remember about that moment, was slipping off the little stool and cracking my chin on the edge of the sink.
Wow. But
So,
you had that moment.
I had the moment. I saw stars. It's a little bit more of a boy, it's like a boyish experience of just being, my body did not know the limits of gravity and angles and different things. So when you said that, I mean, that's just a memory of me that comes 3 or 4 years old, stepping on the stool at the sink, and I feel it right here. So I don't know how well it lines up with your story, but it's a boyish moment, which I kind of treasure. I love the recklessness of jumping out of trees, and if there's an open manhole cover, like climbing into it. That was part of my youth, and there was something outside the boundaries of that were trying to contain me that I appreciate.
I love that. Well said. Yeah, that's lovely. Well, we have just about 3 minutes before we're going to take our first break. We're going to take a 15-minute break in 3 minutes. Lotus Sky, would you be willing to play or sing a song?
I'd love to. Okay.
After the break.
We can also do it after the break. If you want me to do the guitar and sing a guitar song, I would need to tune it first. But if you want me to do a cappella, I could do that right now.
Let's do it.
Let's do the a cappella. Okay, cool. All right. So with this, what's alive? Well, okay. What are you, everyone's probably like, what are you talking about, Lotus Sky singing a song? So, to those who are curious about this, as Christina has introduced me, I'm a musical channel and shamanic guide. Musical channel meaning I can channel the songs of things, nature, energies, and particularly in a light language that's of the earth, nature, spirit dialect. That's the best way I could describe it. So when we tune into a particular intention, I listen for the song and then I literally channel it. And whether or not you believe I'm really channeling or speaking gibberish or anything, the idea here is that sound is a multidimensional thing. And it's a vibrational medicine. And it's a way to bypass the mind and go straight to the heart. So if you're new to channeling or musical channeling in general, my invitation for you is to simply just receive, open your heart, and breathe. So if you're noticing any movement in your energy, just feel free to breathe through it and breathe into it, and receive and enjoy. So I'd love to get some participation from the attendees, actually, because that's how I do things. Beyond the Thinking Mind is Christina's roundtable talk, or our roundtable talk. And when we tune into the vibration of beyond the thinking mind, what word comes to you? So go in a chat and put what word immediately comes to you when you think of beyond the thinking mind. Heart. Okay, beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Heart is one thing. Ethereal. Okay, awesome. Spirit. These are all my favorite words, by the way. Love. All right. Divine. Limitlessness. Great. Let's wait for a few more words. And I'm going to tune into all of these words and bring it through. Inner peace, dreaming, ethereal. Peace. Divine. Love. Limitlessness. Soul, truth, universe. Feeling. Okay, great. All right. I think I have a very beautiful multidimensional energy to work with. So with that, I want to invite you all to, you can keep your eyes open, you keep your eyes closed, but to get into the sacred space within you to receive this. Barikan wanay nay na nunaruane bisay ay kaya mamayo mikay kaya shanyamay.
Can you unmute her, Lara? That's so crazy. It muted you. There we go.
Okay. Mikay kay shanwa taigane, wai kamad wan watani, may hindi ay karu, hay kay kaya shanye, mi ay karwasanu, hay ka kwambatana no say, hanay amanggulwatano say, amay akwandu sa tano may, hanami ay alanay kamay shayatanay, hami kanay shanwatanay, kamway atana shanay, minwa kanay shanwatanay, hanwatamay ay ano, hamwatanay ano, hamwatanay ano, hamwanani. Taking a deep breath here to integrate the feelings, the vibration, the messages you may receive at this point, and attuning to the consciousness of the body, the intelligence of our feelings, and the visceral experience of life itself that takes us beyond the thinking mind into whole system coherence as our nature. And so it is. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Lotus. So spontaneous.
Yeah. So weird things always happen technically when I do energy work. Like I can it happened this morning. Wow, that was a lot. Sorry, I'm feeling a little lightheaded now, but this, thank you for inviting me to share that and for everyone feeling that as well.
Oh, thanks for sharing. Beautiful. Yeah, please share with Lotus Guy your experience in the chat, please. And we're going to take 11 minutes now to take a break. So panelists, feel free to turn off your video, do what you want to do, and we'll meet back here in just about 11 minutes. So on the hour, stay with us, everybody who's watching. You're welcome to stay on and also take a break, and we'll meet you in about 11 minutes. See you soon.
With a Citizens Home Equity line of credit, you can escape to beautiful Hawaii.
Enjoy the traditional squid luau, hike a volcanic trail, surf the breakers off Big Island. On second thought, the hotel pool's fine, too.
Our home equity lines of credit are easy to apply for and use. Unlock the money in your home. Unlock your best world traveler self. Citizens, made ready. Learn more at citizensbank.com/home potential.
Citizens is a brand name of Citizens Bank N.A. and MLS ID number 433960, equal housing lender.
She's moving to Georgia.
Jada's podiatry clinic's top nurse quit, leaving her business toes up.
We've got 6 procedures and 3 major surgeries in the next 2 days.
She needs a new RN who can think on their feet.
There's no way I can do all these procedures on my own.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You hungry? Do you want some more food? You want food? Okay. Okay. Yo, I'm just on a few minute break. I'm giving her some food and I gotta go back.
Thanks, Lara. We're back. Okay. I hope we had a nice little break. I almost didn't want to take the break because I was like, we're just so deep in it, but also it reminds me breaks are good, right? So, okay. Thank you, Lotus Sky. That was so beautiful. I feel like from where we took the energy, what I'm feeling is sort of this I want to bring it to this masculine feminine place. And I don't know what the question is. I have like 5 questions on my list and I'm like none of these are quite right. But I want to open up the feelings and thoughts that we can bring forward around where are we with this, and what I think of like, okay, we've all heard a lot right now. It's like so almost like overdone, right? That okay, the feminine is rising, right? She's here. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for women? What does that mean for men? And what does that mean for non-binary folks right now? Like where are we with this? So I'm hoping some of you can speak into this. But that felt like where we wanted to go next. Yeah. Jump
I'd
in.
love to share something on this. I'm so passionate about masculine and feminine energies, and I mean, I have a whole dimension dedicated to the idea of balance in our masculine and feminine, and I'd love to share from a perspective as someone who is two-spirited, for the lack of a better word. I know that's a Native American term. It's just the English translation in the Philippine language, which I am. I'm of Filipino heritage. So the first thing I'll share is that I truly believe that masculine and feminine doesn't mean male or female. I like to think of them as more as yin-yang energies. And that we all, each and every one of us possesses the masculine and the feminine. And the feminine rising, from how I perceive it, is very much around reharmonizing or bringing it back into balance with the masculine. When I think of feminine and masculine, I think of feminine or as a potential energy, and masculine as a kinetic energy. Both are equally important. When I think of feminine energy, I think of when I think of high feminine energy, because I think there's also high and low feminine and masculine energies. I think of intuition, nourishment, right? Loving boundaries, listening, receptivity, inspiration, right? And when I think of high masculine energies, I think of direction, aligned action, collaboration. It's a lot more kinetic, right? Is driving forward. And I'm constantly, every day, always looking to be in mastery of the balance of both in my life. Because if I find that I'm in either sway, I'm misaligned, If I find I'm in either sway, and I find that when the two can work in harmony, it can be very, very beautiful, very potent, in one's life. So ultimately, this is where I am at with how I relate to this. I truly believe that the feminine comes first. I truly believe that the feminine leads in the sense of bringing the visions, inspirations, intuitions, and directions, almost like this is the thing, this is the vision. And the masculine takes that and creates it, moves it forward, brings it into physical reality, crystallizes it. And in that process, they continue to interweave. They continue to, the feminine informs the masculine acts. Very kind of counterintuitive to traditional family structures, right? Where the masculine makes things happen and carries things out, and the feminine, like cooks, cleans, supports the masculine in doing its thing. Which is probably why a lot of familial structures are starting to shift, away from the traditional way that we organize. What I've seen in a ceremonial contexts, right? Like in TP meetings, for example, is that the feminine, like leaders, teachers, ceremonialists, are supported by the masculine to carry out the vision. And so, ultimately, there's a way that I think as a new paradigm, we can start to claim both, heal whatever relationship we have with each one that has caused it to be distorted in our reality, and then create in harmony with both in the aspect of feminine leading, inferring, and then the masculine structure that allows the feminine to flow. And I think that's what I mean by what I interpret the feminine rising is that it's bringing it back into balance and creating harmony. Yeah.
Thank you for putting words to that. I would love to, let's keep rolling with this. It's lush and really important, I think. So if anyone else has anything you want to jump in with, please do. No?
I'm wondering if, like, when we're unmuting, is that signaling, so I see Lisa and Dan unmuted, and I'm wondering if that means that they're getting ready to say something. Dan says, I am.
I muted. I was inadvertently unmuted.
Okay.
It's a good idea, so I'm going to mute.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Lotus Sky, for bringing our attention to the internal alchemy, because it's so necessary. This topic is so big for me that I am listening and reining myself in a little bit. I also walk a walk of inner alchemy, and I am always relating to the inner masculine, inner feminine. And I think I want to speak to women and patriarchal traumas. And that's a space that I work in a lot. And so I was a woman with a lot of masculine related trauma. And I love that we have, family constellations represented here. We have intergenerational trauma and the path back to the heart represented here. And that's really been my walk. And as the mother of a son, I also had to really question what I wanted my relationship with the masculine to look like, even though my primary perpetrator was my father. There were a lot of very dark energies. So beyond the thinking mind, beyond even the physical trauma healing, what I uncovered in the last half a decade was that there was also a lot of dark influence in my family lineage. And part of my contract was to come transmute that. So not only, coming into the inner alchemy, but also transmuting this family trauma of feminine, masculine, just distortion. And so a couple of years ago, I started to ask the question, why do we have all of this gender weirdness? And why do we have this thing called the patriarchy? And why do we have a power dynamic and a separation matrix? And so I just started really going down that rabbit hole of what led to separation in the first place? And that answer's, it's a really big answer. And it involves off-planet energies. It involves the land and the earth. And so it's like the biggest conversation we could have, you know, because feminine and masculine always wants to be in harmony. It always, I mean, it's creation itself. It's creation itself. And so when we're, you know, saying like there's this feminine energetic and it's suppressed, and there's this masculine energetic and it's power over, that's complete and utter distortion, because these two energetics want to harmonize and create life all the time. So I've been walking this walk the past, well, forever, right? It's kind of what I came to the planet for, but for the last 1.5 years, 2 years, it was a combination of land, planet, grid work. If you're kind of familiar with that, like that's what I was thinking about when Dan was talking about all of those different places and the Queen of Hearts. And I was like, yeah, you're doing something with the feminine on the planet, right? So sometimes the grid work, as it calls to me, is like, go to this place, do this thing, like lay down flowers or say prayers or get in the water or just do something, like the spirit will tell you. And you go there and you kind of like connect the dots and you trust that there's something bigger playing out than maybe we know with the thinking mind, like 1,000 times bigger than we know with the thinking mind. But we get to this place where we begin to trust the soul path. And so I was going to these different places of the land here, and I live in the Western North Carolina area of the States, Cherokee territory. Historically, I have Cherokee heritage on my mother's side. And so I was brought to these mountains, and I've been doing feminine reclamation work in the grid lines. 2019 and 2020 was a really big assignment. And it had to do with partnership and the reconciliation of partnership. So happy to answer questions about any of this. But, you know, when I look at partnerships and union, like no matter the gender, we're reclaiming feminine and masculine in ourselves and then in sovereign partnerships. And so I had this really big situation where I was called to a piece of land to live with a male partner. And it was this reclamation of the Holy Father in me and the Holy Mother in him. And that was the invitation, right, on the soul level. And how it played out is a whole other thing. But the return to the heart is the path, because this inner union and inner alchemy and the restoration of the feminine in the earth, and then the restoration of the feminine in the earth is actually leading to the restoration of the masculine in the earth. So in this way, Lotus Sky was using the phrase feminine leadership. And like, there is so much feminine leadership right now, because as we remember the true feminine current in us and in that land connection, we're actually remembering an essence of the masculine that we haven't had on the planet in quite some time. And so there's a lot of activation regardless of gender, but you know, the feminine is like calling back this higher expression of the masculine and the masculine in the heart. And I'm teaching a whole thing. I'm not even sure if that made sense, because I'm trying to make like a concise version of something that's very large, but I'm teaching this concept and I call it Heartland. So it's this feminine, like the feminine, this will be my final thought here. The feminine has been purposefully taken from, like, let's be clear, purposefully depleted in the earth and in women. And so what we're doing now is not necessarily just rising with our nervous systems and like fighting back. That's not it. What we're doing is restoring the feminine current of creation through ourselves, through combination with earth work. And that heals the epigenetic trauma. I've been working on the lineage trauma in my mother line and my father line, but that heals the trauma, the distortions of feminine being less than, and all of the ways that that did play out in gender. I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And this can be this can be anything, but people can mute and unmute. It doesn't matter. It's a conversation. So just letting you all know, I would love to hear Lisa and Dan on this. Just even that ancestral piece, I think is really important here that Sarah just mentioned.
Yeah, I really appreciate the topic, and it for me reinforces this place of knowing, and back to the mystical nature of all that is, that's really beyond language. I'm thinking again about music too, and just the blessing of your music, Lotus Sky, and the word harmony. Like, no accident that you would use the word harmony as you were speaking, and I have to say my path has, for whatever reason, been quite attuned to the intersection of being a person, just a person, and an American. The influence of land, and the intersection of citizenship with land, and the history that's happened, in the generations before us, and the intersection of our humanity as individuals and in families and in the larger groups we're part of. This part of the world, in the States, this country, my home country, was formed out of disconnection from family. And so the history here in this part of the world is always about trying to getting away from family by force or by choice. So while the language of masculine and feminine, of course, resonates with me, I'm always alert to the language of family and the frequent invisibility of it, because of what I just said. And so for me, the language about the roles of family life that have to do with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and daughters and sons and aunts and uncles, etc., is really, really important, because that's where our humility is. And for me, it's like it's really grounding. Humility is really grounding. In this part of the world, North America, the US, there's often a profound, it's bigger than all of us. It's just so much bigger than all of us. The inheritance of the absence of humility, and it's not, and I also think about it just feels important to name, humility is not shame. It's anything but, but I sense a cultural confusion about that. And so I while in my work and in my life, I'm certainly with the field of feminine and masculine, everything, all the time, as we all are. I'm I'm you know, it's like where does the rubber meet the road, you know? Who's doing the dishes and who's got the airspace and who's doing, you know, all the practicalities of life are really important. And how for me it's, you know, how am I living my life when nobody's watching? That's where it's at, you know. What a blessing to be here with everybody today. But this is, you know, it's the how do I show up with my husband, you know, with our daughter, with my siblings, with my colleagues, etc., at the grocery store, all that kind of stuff. So because, you know, the feminine, the masculine, it's there all the time. It in all those spaces. And so when before COVID, when most of my work was in groups in person, these roles around daughters, a frequent experience I would lead women through in groups had to do with differentiating between being a girl daughter and an adult daughter. And, you know, just some simple ceremonies around the visibility of that movement of being an adult daughter. I had no idea. It didn't come from my head, but it became apparent over years. It's like, oh, this is really important. It's a missing piece in the history of how things have all gone, etc. So lots more I could say. I'm going to stop now.
Lisa, can I ask a question right there? Are you saying because of the woundedness in the girl, like coming into the conscious feminine as the adult?
Often rooted in family life, which is, of course, it intersects with the larger history of patriarchy, etc. But there's just often an absence of a blessing. There's just an absence of a blessing from fathers for the daughter to be an adult daughter, and also with the mother, you know, and it just generationally it goes on and on and on. So yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that, Lisa. That just so many things just opened inside of me. I don't even know how to put words to that, but thank you so much for bringing the importance of that blessing forward. Wow. Yeah, lots of feelings.
Yeah, I really appreciated too what you shared around humility. And I love the word humility. It's one of my favorite words. And it's something I attune to every time. This is not around smallness or not around shame. Now, I grew up in like an Asian family, like a tiger family, you know, and family was so important. Is so important. And the society that we grew up in was pretty matriarchal, even though there was a lot of colonized wounds. We had 2 female presidents. My mother ran the house. Everybody's mothers ran the house in many families. And it's funny. Sorry, it's just a little funny sometimes how they run the house. And so, and at the same time, like the collectivistic mentality and the honoring, like every you know, All Saints Day, you know, Dia de los Muertos, you know, like those times. But for us, it's All Saints Day. We go to the cemetery and we spend like 2 days there. Some people even sleep there overnight to honor the people who've passed. And family reunions were big. And even though I didn't know many of my relatives, like I got to at least see them as my relatives. You know, there were too many names, huge family. But I knew my cousins, you know, at least, and some uncles and aunts. But there was that, and then we also had rites of passages, like the debut when you hit 18 and when you hit 16, when you hit 18, you know, those things. And ultimately, my mother kept talking about the Western, fiercely independent culture, the individualistic like aspect,
Mhm.
and how they never call their families, never call their parents. They just go off and do their thing and try to be their own, pave their own way. And how we really need to stick together. And we had large homes where your grandparents lived downstairs and you lived with your family until you got married. And so I experienced really the farthest degrees on each side, a very tight-knit, collectivistic, almost codependent, really kind of dynamic between, the very strong Asian family and a legacy and a lineage and all that. And when I came out to my family and I got estranged from them, I went off to the other end. I didn't speak to my family for 7 years, kept, some conversations here and there, but because of their rejection of me for being queer, I was kind of severed from that space. I mean, severed is also like the inner child trauma, but I would say emancipated in some ways to find my own truth. Now, interestingly enough, as I've grown older and done all the healing work and reconnected with my family and reestablishing a new way to relate to them, I'm tuning into healing what it means to be part of a lineage. What it mean, and even if the lineage has all that trauma, the colonized trauma, the patriarchal trauma, the capitalist trauma, the all of that. The balance between the two, being an individual and honoring the lineage that has created you. Interestingly enough, in my own self-determination, so I have lived my own life. All my family's in the Philippines now, even though they all studied in Western colleges and stuff. They're all in the Philippines, and they're like, "Where is Lotus?" I mean, they don't even say Lotus Sky; they say Christine. Where's Christine? And they're like, this our daughter is just in Hawaii, like being a whatever, not Christian, not married, cut her hair, and they just think that I'm really ill, actually. Like they think I'm off the hoot, And even then, it takes a lot of courage to be in the balance of, I really need to live my life. And I also really need to honor where I came from. Interesting enough, I'm on a medicine path. So when I go on my shamanic journeys with medicine, what does the medicine always show me? My childhood wounds, my family wounds, like all of that connection. And every single time, since my time in Peru, like the last time I went to Peru, I got clear instructions to make an altar for my family and to pray for them and to pray for healing and to create that connection. And I think it's really important. It's funny, we talked about the feminine and the balance of masculine and feminine and coming into the space because, they're two polarities as well, collectivistic, individualistic, and where's the balance with that? So I just really appreciate what you shared because ultimately there is the roots and then there are the branches. There's the roots where we come from and there's the branches where we reach to. And I think when we start to attune to that both end, at least this is my own personal journey. I'm speaking solely from my own personal journey. The both end, the honoring of my mother doing her best, playing the role that she had to play in order to ensure our security or success. The way that she worked really hard, very much in the low masculine, sacrifice, stress, conquest energy, from nothing to high society. And the way that she played out some low feminine qualities too. The martyrdom, that I sacrificed so much for this family energy that was just ingrained in me. I mean, oh my God, how I brought that to my day-to-day life, how I brought that to growing my business, the sacrifice, like the healing of those parts, but also honoring of the privilege of healing for my lineage, the privilege of saying that I don't have to do that thing that my mother did. I choose something else, and then also honoring too her high mass and high feminine. The times when I was severely depressed in high school, she would carry me to the bathtub and wash me and bathe me, like dress me because I couldn't move, because I was severely depressed. That nurturing aspect of her. And the times where she, when I was being bullied in school, she showed up and, stood up for me and drew that boundary and took action to protect me. Like those aspects. And so I think, in our lineage, there are high and low masculine and feminine wounds that we get to heal, but there are also high masculine and high feminine things that our lineage embody that we get to carry forth. So I just want to thank you for what you shared, because I can see the connection, particularly in my own life and healing journey as well.
Thank you so much.
This is a great conversation. I want to share an update of the playing card story, and it relates to what Sarah was speaking about, the epigenetic healing of how we bring the inherited trauma that we're holding in the cells of our body. We have these epigenetic switches, content remembers everything that ever happened. This is a memory storage, our cells. And within that, there's all the generations of trauma that have occurred. And for within the female lineages, it tends to be massive, of the violence, the sexual assault, the denial of self-expression, the burdens of martyrdom, et cetera, and there are piles, generations and generations of it. And so for the living today, this generation that is breathing, what are the tools that we have for that alchemy? And I'll share a little story of something that I encountered. I was working with a woman from London who's works in corporate banking. She's a executive consultant in corporate banking, and she was kind of developing her more mystical side and doing ceremonies. And she noticed that she just felt a block in her throat when this occurred, and she overcame with a terror that that she would be persecuted and killed. So similar to Christina, I know you've had similar as you're developing this mystical side of yourself. The fear rises in a way they come together. And I did in the constellation, we set up the representative for the fear. We step it back to the mother, we step it back. And I just told her to keep stepping back, go back a generation, as long as it kept getting more intense, go back another generation, go back another generation. And she ended up going back 12 generations until it dissipated. And she found herself with a girl, and she described the girl, a blonde-haired girl, 8 or 9 years old, and she was standing in a field with blue flowers, and she could smell the smoke from the fire that her mother was tending up where the houses were. And she had been sent out to collect blossoms for some plant medicine, and had a little basket and was collecting. And the sense that she had was that this girl was living as the last generation of this intact, kind of priestess-oriented indigenous community in England. And she identified even the region of England where it was. And we did a process of very similar to what you're describing, Sarah, of seeing her and the two looking at each other and doing some release and harmonization of the terror, because this girl had lived through the beginning of the witch hunts. And I asked her what year it was. She says, oh, it's about 1571. So 2 weeks later, I'm working with a man who's in his late 60s. He's in Tucson, Arizona. He's a somatic experiencing therapist and trainer. And we were doing a process with him, and we came around to his mother, and his mother's missing voice is the kind of the shut down, kind of absent, lost qualities of his mother, with a kind of more powerful executive father, and the imbalance in him trying to mediate between. And I asked him to step back, and he went back 12 generations and he described exactly the same girl. The same field of flowers, blonde hair, blue flowers, the same fires burning. I asked him what year. He said, she said, I don't know what year. I said, ask her, because he's in representation. She said 1570s. And we did a healing process. Both of these clients knew that girl from previous processes that they had done. And so I said, you know, I have to get you two together, because they didn't know each other at all, had no way of ever knowing each other. But we actually created the Science, Myth, Magic, and Mystery class around the two of them and the girl. And we have been meeting together with a larger group. It goes up and down, but there's a kind of a core of about 20 people that have been meeting for almost 2 years now, and doing these deep dive constellations. And we just stay with the same question, that exactly what you had, Sarah. I know you're on a different path, but in a way where the questions are leading us towards similar answers of what's the alchemy? How do we find the alchemy in our heart? What are the tools? And of course, as Lisa says, I mean, you have to work with real people in their real life. You can't just be in Narnia, live your life in the cloud castles and do all the healing work there. It has to be brought down to earth into, real human beings with the real problems that they're experiencing in their lives, which can be really tough. And, but there is a way, I believe, of doing this ancestral healing and harmonizing the epigenetic trauma memories so that they find a place of equilibrium in the body, rather than just replicating the pain through depression and addiction and displacement, all those other things. So I think that's it. I think that's what I'd add.
Dan, when you've met with these folks for almost 2 years, is there any particular, when you say, like, what are the tools for the alchemy? What are the tools for that? What are you finding?
The place where it's leading us is towards integration of science. So we're working with the applications of quantum theory, which include entanglement. So we can see that how the living are entangled with the ancestor, and that the release that allows for the harmonization within the body is to be observed, which also comes from quantum theory, that and that the ancestors exist in unity consciousness, which is also comes from quantum theory. And at the same time, we're also working with the deep mystical traditions. So this is all duplicated in the mythology of the Aleutian mysteries, of working with Inanna's descent, working with some of the myths of antiquity, and that these mythic beings, even though the stories are old, the mythic beings are remain. So we can set up Inanna as a representative. We can work with Mary Magdalene, and she comes present. If you represent her and call her in, even though the stories have been torn up by the Roman Church, destroyed everything, she can still teach. I had the last class of a certain cycle was today. A woman represented the river of life. This is a woman from India who's is a very spiritually oriented woman she lives in India, and she represented the river of life. There's another Indian woman she's in Canada visiting her son who's in college in Western Canada, and she came to visit. And since she's been visiting, she has not been able to sleep, has not been able to eat, and is racked with pain in her body and is having difficulty breathing. And it's been 10 days, 10 sleepless nights, loss of appetite and pain. And we only meet every 2 weeks. So we hadn't seen her during this 10 days. And we connected her to the first people of the land, that she's resonating with the slaughters of the shamans on this land in Western Canada. And that because she is an energetic being that is not shut down, as Lisa says, part of the American experience is don't feel, just like keep what's in the earth buried. But this Indian woman is porous to these energies. So she comes to that land and it just comes right into her body. So at the same time, we're working with her to acknowledge, to see them, to name that this is what's happening for her, so that she can not just be in a flooded state with her own feelings, but to understand the context. So we do process. We might set up, people have represented Saturn, fire, but also, brother, sister, the nieces and nephews, mother, father. So we're working both at the very ordinary human level of the moment to moment shit that we're all living in, and then bringing in these ancestral and spirit energies. And, the ancestors don't want us to suffer, but they do want to be seen. And spirit is with us, but it also needs to be allowed in. That if we are just with the digital data of the moment, we'll talk, everybody in the world will talk about the slap for 10 days in a row, and then the 11th day they forget about it, and 6 months later they don't even remember who they were. And then we're just bombarded with all this digital content that blocks out our access. So that's what we're working with.
Thank you. Wow. Sign me up for the next one. I'm ready.
I'd love for you to be in the next one.
I would love it. Sarah, you don't have to raise your hand.
I just thought I'd use that feature. I've never done it before, but I see people do it. Okay, so this is getting really wonderful. I love this concept of a round table, because now we're getting in it, right? So thank you so much, everyone, for what you're sharing. And it's so interesting. My soul path has been, I've done so much work, y'all, like you wouldn't believe it, right? Like we all probably have, and just searching for these answers and like, what the heck happened in my family, and what the heck happened with feminine, masculine, all that. The one, I've never done family constellation. So I'm super curious, and it's awesome that you all are here talking about that. And I'm coming from today having this like really deep, mind-blowing awareness conversation with an Akashic Records reader that I really trust. And my family lineage is quite interesting in that it really took on some of these separation energies. So I'll talk about unity consciousness for just a moment. To me, unity means a reunification with source. And to me, that is feminine, masculine, energetic union throughout the dimensions. So let's just say that unity consciousness is a 12th dimensional energy. So to me, I'm really interested in, like what are the energetic dynamics of feminine and masculine in me, but then healing back through the lineage. But then also, what is my relationship with the feminine and masculine divine? And those two are unified to me in like the Godhead, right? So to me, where that begins to, like, there were forces, let's say, that wanted and were successful at interrupting that unity source connection, where we would be really unified naturally. We would not have all of these separation stories on the planet if we were never like separated from that rather purposefully. So interestingly, my family lineage, in that lineage were people that acted out that separation matrix, like on behalf of the dark. Okay. So as I'm listening to you talk about family, I just really feel to voice, and I can feel it like in my voice, like in this center, wanting to speak for women, and maybe somebody's on the call that needs to hear this, I'm not sure. But as a woman, now I have to clear my throat, isn't that funny? Excuse me. As a woman, I tried so hard to engage with my father, to invite him to consciousness, to invite him to a loving situation. My father is so ridden with dark entities that it is not possible for me to have a relationship with him, or the healing, like a rectified relationship with him. And so for any woman who's listening, I think that women put a lot of energy into healing their relationships with their father, their relationships with the masculine, continually giving into that relationship, making ourselves smaller, making the wounds our fault. Mm-hmm. And I really want to say that I don't think that we have to continue to ask a father who is severed from that unity source consciousness. We do not have to continue to ask for him to get it, because I get it. I'm reunifying with source in this lifetime. He's chosen not to. So I do not continue to like go back and ask him to understand something that he's not that able to understand. I cannot do the work with that aspect of family. What I can do is work with my own children. And it's really fascinating because my sister just got pregnant with the first grandchild other than my children. And that activated in me, I had to voice some things in order to protect this child. Because all of this dark secrecy in the family, I needed to expose it so that I knew that this child was also safe. What that did was reconnected my sister and I. And so I'm looking at the lineage, and I'm looking at knowing that I stopped intergenerational patterning. I did it. It was hard and long and took so much of me. I feel like I've aged because of it. Like, it was hard. But I know that like my children and the next generation do not have that intergenerational burden. So I wanted to say that, and I don't know how that fits into family constellation work, but the emotional laboring on the part of women for the father and for other people to get it, we don't have to do that anymore. I really believe that. Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any last words around that from anyone before we take a short break? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sarah.
Well, I just would like to say that I feel the depth of what you're speaking of there, and there's a lot you're in contact with. I just want to honor the depth of all that you're in contact with as you're, saying all that you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I'd like to add something too. That Bert Hellinger, who's the founder of Family Constellations, was just incredibly perceptive and aware, much more so than anyone that he would train. And so the people that he trained and then the trainers that trained other people needed to distill some of the teachings down into some more practical, translatable principles. And some of those, I would say I don't subscribe to. And so there is a rather common technique in many family constellations, is that the solution to any problem is bow to your mother, bow to your father, take your mother in, take your father in, and that if you're not connecting in your father in a certain kind of reverential way, then, you know, the ills of the world will befall you. And that if you align and agree and accept, then that will free you to let, you know, the love flow. I don't subscribe personally. I know that this is rather common, and you, from what you're saying, it sounds like you've encountered it. But I think it is it's a bit of a dumbing down of some of the origins of the work. And I would agree with what you're saying, that if a lot of it's situational, and that you need to work. You have his genetic content is in your body, and so you're responsible for being in relationship in a way that you're not at war within yourself with the part of you that is him. Like, that needs to be accepted and understood and allowed to be, that this is within yourself, and it can't be dismissed because you don't like it. But it's not, doesn't have to do with him as another person that you need to bow or say anything to him or hear anything from him or pretend that the relationship is different than it actually is. In order to do that, it can be done through different pathways that are yours alone.
Thank you, Dan. Amazing. Yeah. Whew. I just got this beautiful image as you were speaking of bowing to ourselves and bowing to that energy that is of our maternal and paternal within us. It's beautiful. Yeah. And Sarah.
One last one, just a sentence. That's alchemy. What I just described and what you're doing, that is what alchemy is.
And Sarah, I highly recommend constellation work, and you're on here with some of the greatest, that I've met and that I've gotten to witness in the work. Just putting that out there. It's just another layer. It's another way. It's another path, and it's really beautiful. Yeah. All right, so let's take a 10-minute break. How does that sound? Well, Lara will come back at 5 after. Okay, so we'll take a break. Audience who's still here, bless you. Thank you for still being here. We're going to do a Q&A and bring some of you on to ask some questions with our amazing speakers here after we come back. So please stay on with us. All right, see you soon.
Emily? What, Emily? Ruby, Ruby, come. Ruby, come. Come here. Don't just stare at me. Come.
And we are back. All right. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. Whew, my heart just feels like it's bigger. It's bigger now. Uh, yeah, it's amazing. Um, so I know that we're about to go into some Q&A with some of the folks who are listening today, and I just want to share just a little window into a story that sort of, I think, weaves a lot of what we've been talking about just in my own life. And it makes me think about my last name, which is Miino, which I can barely say myself in Italian. We say Miglino here in the States because it's easier. Um, I I think it was, oh goodness, probably it was like the age around 29 to 33 or 34 that I was like, I'm just gonna let it go. Like, I'm just gonna let the hard, heavy, intense, paternal weight of my Italian line. I'm just gonna drop the name. I'll just be Christina Marie, which is like, talk about, we're not even getting into the weight of that, right? We're just talking about the last name here for a moment. But I remember having years of, well, what is it then? What is it? What do I name myself? This is so much to do with what so many people were saying, but Lisa, the disconnection, and the disconnection from land, and the disconnection from even that blessing missing within me of like the young daughter and then the adult daughter. Oh my gosh. Whew. So that's why I'm sharing. It was so inspiring. So I spent a couple years feeling like I'm just going to shed this, and I couldn't find what would come into that space. And so I decided over time to sort of shift the way that I changed this, look at it from another angle. And I started working with Dan here like a year ago. And Dan was really open to looking at this with me. And we did some big sessions on going really into my Italian line and like, why is it so scary? Why is it so dark and hard and quite honestly, like debilitating in some ways, And we came into just a lot of generations of, this dynamic really between men and women in marriages, where even in fathers and daughters, all of it, the men and women, how they treated each other, and came up with like a lot of generations of women with hardened hearts, really angry, really, really upset and shut down because of how they've been treated, but then also treating, it's like, of course, right? Then treating people badly and not being able to access love, not being able to access the divine feminine. And then the men sort of being very, like, I want to say like squirrely and not really dependable and not really present at all, and very much an addiction and abuse, like all heavy things. And it was like generation after generation, which of course comes from immense hardship and poverty and a lot of things. So we did a lot of this work with constellation work, and Dan was an incredible guide. And thank goodness for you, Dan, and you being the man that you are. Like, there was no one else to do that with me. And so I was so blessed to do this work with Dan. And then I also had another mentor at the time who I was meeting with in person over the pandemic, Mari Sato, here in Santa Fe. And she's a song carrier. And so she heard me talking about what the work I was doing with Dan and my last name. And she starts singing this Italian water song.
Mm-hmm.
She starts singing this song. And in every cell of my body, I just opened and I just sobbed listening to her. And she taught me the song. And I'll just say it's by Devorah Scipione. She's in Arizona. And she is an Italian woman who lives in Arizona now, and she wrote this song one day when she walked outside and the rain started to come. And if you live in the desert, I live in the desert, she lives in an even more extreme desert. When the rain comes, it's this massive blessing, right? Massive blessing of the feminine, massive opening of life and nurturing, and it's going to be okay, and we're going to keep going. And I learned that song. And so just to say like another pathway, right, was I just sang to this little girl, you know, inside myself. Like I would sing the song, I would learn the song, I would go outside, and every morning I just kept singing it. And I grew her up in that song, because in the song was that higher frequency that you were talking about, Sarah, where I could meet my family in that place where these are really big-hearted people. You know, if you know some Italian families, it's like the heart is big, they're loud, they're creative, they're, you know, sexual and passionate and like vibrant and teeming with life, right? When they're in their highest. And so I just wanted to share that because, man, I became a woman that way, you know, through my last name. Not by, at least in my case, not by releasing it, by bringing it in. And I'm just so grateful. I just thought, wow, that's a lot of what we've been, you know, dancing around and talking about. And yeah, thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I go by Lotus Sky as like my music name is, that's my artist name, and that's the vibration of, I don't know, this cosmic aspect of me. But when I'm with my friends, when I'm in ceremony, I go by Chris, you know, and I say I'm Christine Angela Espiritu, which is like my whole name actually is Christine Angela Espiritu Dolendo. Dolendo being my father's last name, Espiritu being my mother's maiden name. And that's traditional to make your mother's maiden name your middle name. I thought that was a thing for everyone, but that's not a thing for everyone. Like the maiden's name goes away. The mother's maiden name goes away. We keep it as a middle name. And I wanted to just erase that for a time as I was healing. You know, I was like, my family rejects me, I will reject you. You know, and like, and then discovered other aspects of me. But in a reclamation of my name, my birth name, I dropped Dolendo because Dolendo actually literally means to be in pain. It's the Italian gerund form. And doler in Spanish, you know, it means to be in pain. So it's like Christ, angel, spirit in pain. And there's been a lot of pain in my ancestry. I'm talking people who died of alcoholism, a lineage of sexual abuse, like womanizing material, like just pain, like colonized, patriarchal, third world country pain, you know? And then in a prayer, I got a clear direction to drop the pain vibration from lineage and just honor my mother's maiden name, Christine Angela Espiritu, Christ Angel Spirit. So I really like reclaim that. And in ceremony, I'm like, I'm Chris, you know, Christine Angela Espiritu, aka Lotus Sky. And people are like, how do you want me to call you? It's like, I actually don't care. You can call me Chris, you can call me Lotus Sky. I feel both vibrations within me. And so claiming, you know, reclaiming that was really powerful. It was really beautiful. And speaking to the vibration of our given names and the vibration of our ancestry too.
So Lotus, my mother's maiden name is Charoba from Slovakia.
Wow.
And it means sickness.
Wow.
And all my
Oh
Slovak,
my gosh.
they're all doctors over there. It's fascinating, right?
Oh, wow. Powerful.
Yeah, I just had to say that. Whoa. Yeah. Well, are we ready? Lara, do you want to, I don't know if people have sent you questions or if anyone is ready to come on to the panel. and ask, lie with us. But we're ready if they're ready. So we have never tried this before. So bear with us. We've never done it quite like this before. And maybe you can actually, they can send them to you, Lara, and you can, yeah, then they can come on.
I'm going to bring Judy. Oh, sorry. I'm going to bring Judy up. So Judy, you'll see a little pop-up inviting you to become a panelist. You can come on and ask your question.
Thanks, Lara.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Judy.
Hi. Thank you so much for all the insights and the teachings today. Hey, Dan, a familiar face. And now you all seem familiar to me, so thank you. And Lotus Sky, just the moment that you hit the first note, my whole body was just in that frequency. So thank you for that embodiment. When you all spoke about the integration of science and spirit and the masculine and feminine, I'm feeling that the vibration of the cosmos right now is that unity of consciousness and integration. And personally, I've been asking the question of, as humans on the earth, when we have current desires and they lead us down one path, and then we also have visions and intuition of what the future might be. So some might say that's an intuitive hit or psychic abilities to see the future, and that takes us to another path. What do you do in that situation in order to live beyond the thinking mind? So of course, thinking mind will try to assess pros and cons, which one's real, and yet we're inviting ourselves to go beyond the thinking mind. So love anything you can add to that. Thank you.
Clarifying question, are you feeling like because you have this desire and you have an intuition of how your future may look like, that you think that they're in conflict?
I can go into the personal piece of it. I know we're being
yeah. Let's hear it.
I'm a little shy about it.
What are you getting? Yeah.
So after a 30-year marriage, I am dating for the first time, and so, but I've never had to relate to people in an intimate romantic relationship having this psychic ability. So if I meet someone and I feel like we're vibing, I have certain desires as a human, but then I can see their future and know that, let's say they're going to get back with their former partner or that they're going to be with someone else. What do you do in that situation when, the whole challenging experience is to live beyond the thinking mind? Does that?
Oh, good, Judy. This is so good. Thank you.
Yes, well, Christina, it's really resonated with me at this roundtable and what I'm personally journeying through. Thank you.
Thank you for your vulnerability and openness, really. Who wants to jump in?
Can I answer that with a story of mine real quick? So, and I'm super curious, this is so interesting, but I'm super curious, especially it has to do with like love and attraction and partnership. So I'm a Leo moon, I'm all about the romance. So I'm super curious about other people as well. So my fiance right now, when we first met, and when we connected, I just, I not first met, when we really connected, that's when I really started falling in love. And not really caring how long it lasted, but just like falling in love. And I had a friend who was psychic at that time. And I mean, she's super psychic, but I was working with her at that time. And I was saying like, what's going to happen? She's newly separated from her long-term relationship. I don't know if she's ever really dated a woman before. Her last partner was a white guy from the military. Like, what is this? How long is this really gonna last? And what my psychic shared was like, well, she's like, if you try to initiate anything right now, it'll last around 3 months and she'll leave, you know? So I was like, okay, I'll pause and wait and see. 3 months later, there was a check-in and she was like, if you were to go right now, if you were to initiate anything right now, it would go for about a year. And then you two would go off and do your own thing, you know? But she was like, but potentials always shift. Potentials always shift. There's never a fixed future. You know, so based on your decision, based on your mindset or what you decide or how you relate and your energy, and also based on her own energy and what she decides, like potentials can always shift. And so I had kind of similar as you, this like, you know, desire, attraction, connection. But then there was just a part of me that felt like it just feels too soon. It feels like it might not last. Maybe it'll last a year. You know, maybe I'll be the bi-curious fling, you know, in between her next partner or whatever. But in that moment, I just decided that I was like, you know what? If I get to love her for a year, that's good enough for me. It's a very romantic choice. You know, I'm a romantic, Leo moon. Okay, don't forget, Cancer sun, Cancer rising. Okay, like depth, love, emotion, romance. So I'm like, if I got to love her for a year, you know, I was like, what, 29? Like, it's cool. Like, it's like 29. If I had to love her for a year, like, that's good enough for me. And so I got into the relationship kind of releasing any attachment to the outcome and open to whatever. Now it's 2022. We're living in a beautiful home in Hawaii. We're engaged to get married. And I know part of that is because of our... you know, just me following my excitement, me releasing attachment to an outcome, giving people permission to stay or go, and also knowing that the future is not fixed. You know, they're just based on the current energies of the moment. And then our actions, our energy and alignment allows things to unfold as they're meant to. There have been crossroads where I would not have been with her. Really, there have been a few crossroads where one of us was going to walk away. So many potentials where we could have, you know, not been together. And this is the timeline that we both chose in this present moment. Now I'm curious to hear what everyone else says. Yeah.
How does that land for you, Judy?
It really does feel like the truth, just kind of like the way Lotus Sky's song landed. You know, there's just this, I think a lot of other folks said there was a familiarity, and that's when I feel that it's just the truth kind of being mirrored back to me. So thank you for that story, and congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Really inspiring. Judy, is this a man?
Yes. And I do believe that it is an integration of divine masculine and feminine. So from a cosmic level, it feels very aligned. I really feel like with some men, I'm already in union with them on the spiritual level, but in the physical, things haven't, you know, really started yet, but the connection is there on the spiritual.
I think it's a big answer, but the brief one that I'll share is that after my marriage, I met a series of soulmates and very important relationships. And I could always see, or thought I could always see psychically, what the potential was, or maybe what would happen. And in every circumstance, what that was turned out to be what alchemy and integration I would end up meeting or end up receiving from the relationship. So I think I'm going to leave it right at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. Does this feel complete?
It does. And I just want to say thank you all for sharing your own stories and having this roundtable be a safe space for vulnerability. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy, so much for your question. Thanks for being on with us.
It's great to see you, Judy. I just want to, I don't want to answer your question, but I do want you to know, how much I admire you and your quest for love and everything you've done, to pursue your heart and your purpose, to know and to live through your own truth. And I just have tons of respect for you, but no advice.
Thank you, Dan. You've advised me before, and it is, I want to just let everyone know I've done constellations with Dan. He's one of my mentors, and I am the first one in my lineage to get a divorce. And so that's already a big deal of freeing up the divine feminine and the divine masculine to really pursue what is meant to be. So thank you. Love to you, Dan.
Wow, that's big. Thank you so much, Judy. So big.
Okay, we're gonna bring up Stacy. Just a moment.
Thanks, Blair. Welcome, Stacy.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to hear everyone's perspective and dynamic, but my question arises because we live in a place, without going too deeply into it, that's very moving through that patriarchal energy into the divine mastery of the feminine, but the feminine that is here is very is fighting that. They're in combustion instead of in synchronicity. And so I'm a very predominant healer in our town, and I get pushed out of inner circles because I'm very strong in my teachings, and I've been at this for 35 years, and I keep being asked to soften what I have to offer because it's not in conjunction. And they say, well, you're living too much in your divine mastery, in your masculine, and you need to soften. And I don't, innerly, I know we can always do better when we know better. And so I've really been soul searching for the last few months. But have any of you ever come across where you're getting information from the outside sources that you're trying to co-create with not being in balance, or being reminded that you need to come back into balance? And how do you deliver that message internally and then come to a place of completion moving through that? Because I'm really struggling.
Just really quick, Stacy, I'm just curious, and this is probably just to open this up a little bit more and understand a little bit more. Do you resonate with the feedback you're getting?
No, I don't, because I believe that I am in balance. If I wasn't in balance, I would have illness in my body. I would have illness around me. I would, I'm an acupuncturist who uses sound. I do 5 Chinese medicine and doesn't matter. It doesn't define who I am. But I've been on this ancestral clearing for this entire path of my journey. I was very, very sick when I was a child. And so I had to take to Buddhist teachings and chanting in order to heal myself. I don't resonate with what they're saying. I understand that the power in the divine feminine that I hold looks aggressive to them because I don't play the psychological warfare games, in my opinion. And I think that's where I'm having a hard time trying to shift the integration of the perception of how I'm being received as opposed to who I really am, if that makes sense.
And did I hear you say that you need to co-create with these people? Like, does the relationship have to work?
That's what so this is where I'm tiptoeing through the tulips, because I haven't done group dynamics before. And our culture here is really working on a very long sexual trauma history. I'm part First Nations and I work with part First Nations, and that's a different realm of what I'm doing. But when I'm playing with those that are opening for the first time and they're very ethereal, where there's, and this is not me judging, this is just giving feedback. I believe them at times to be doing some spiritual bypassing and projecting, as opposed to living in truth and honor within themselves. And I'm trying to find a way of how do I receive their information, integrate it, and then mirror back the work that needs to be done so that they can rise out of this need to judge what they don't understand, if that makes sense.
I'm happy to take this one first, if that's okay. I'm feeling this. So when there is feminine wounding, or when women are have experienced patriarchal traumas, masculine related traumas that are unresolved, and many women are on a path of healing that, and we're all like we're on our path where we're on our path. I've seen lately a lot of critique of the masculine in any form, a lot of like reclaiming of the feminine, a knowledge not to armor. So there's like, an emphasis on softening, but then still like a vigilance that's unnamed or actually like unconscious. And like I'm saying they, I am generalizing, but this is, I think, a big collective thing that we're going to move through. Like you're doing the work, we're all going to do the work. So in that space there, and it's still an identification with victim, because in a separation culture, we have victim victimizer. And so somebody's got to be, like it's a polarity construct. And so if there's a story of victim, then there is a search for like naming, putting off, keeping at bay the victimizer. And in that space, there is just not yet a healthy understanding of what healthy masculine energy is. Potentially there hasn't been an experience of it in the way I would talk about it. Like it's the reunification of all of us as women, or as a primarily feminine essence being, like our reunification with the masculine energetic. It sounds like you've been working on that and are embodying that to a solid degree potentially. And so I've been given some very similar feedback by women who are still holding a victim consciousness, really wanting to like make careful every aspect of masculine so that it can be ensured that the masculine is safe and will not hurt anymore. And so if you're coming with any kind of like strength or embodiment of like a conscious actualized masculine, it could be perceived as dangerous. And lastly, I'll say, a woman in a conscious embodiment of union does not need to tell another woman how they're embodying feminine or masculine. Like there's just no need for it at all. So that the fact that there is critique just makes me think like there's still a running of victim consciousness, understandably, but the seeking to make safe the external is a strategy for a time on the path. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That makes complete sense. Like I was just trying to run it in my brain and really embodiment in my body to not take that personally and just allow it to be a part of their, like, holding the space for that conversation to happen. And so then I always, you know, refer back to them and say, what I hear you saying is this, and wait for their response. And how does that make you feel? And now I'm going to hand this back to you and ask that you go journal about it and ask yourself, why does this keep showing up? If me being in this space is a threat, what threat is it bringing to you? And how can we work together to help diminish that idolization of the polarities between the black and white?
Just to piggyback off what Sarah shared, I'm someone that regularly gets the feedback, especially when I was growing up in my Asian culture, that I really need to soften. And my mother really had a problem with the sound of my voice. It's strong. It sounds a little forceful. I get it. It's low. She, you know, you want to just speak like this, you know, like really soft, really gentle, like really was trying to teach me how to speak. And I also have just a driver energy, like a strong controller kind of energy, you know, strong energy like that. So I would pick up the phone and I'm very direct, you know, I'm just like, hello. As a little girl, like, hello, like, hi, is someone from the hospital come? Is Dr. Delendo in at home? Is she available? And I'm like, no, she's not. Okay, bye. And just like, and my mom would be sleeping because she's exhausted. She worked like, you know, forever, 12-hour long shifts. So she'd be like, if anyone calls and asks for me, I'm not here. You know, she'll sleep. And I'm like, all right, let me know first. And I'm answering and I'll be like, Mom, it's, you know, Dr. whatever from blah, blah. And she's like, it's like, oh, she's not here. Okay, bye. Just like really direct. And my mom like told me, she's like, you really need to sing a little bit, be a little melodic when you speak, because you're so direct and they, you know, they might think that you're being mean to them, because in our culture, we're very considerate. So you want to like talk like melodic. You want to match their energy so they can connect with you, you know? And it's a skill. So I would try to like get my way by being my way, you know? But I realized that there are ways that I could meet the energy so that what I'm wanting to deliver can land with the individual. So, you know, so picking up the call, I would just go and sing, hello? Yeah, she's not home right now, but do you want to call later? Okay, have a good day, bye. And it was at first weird, but then it opened up a softness in me. And teach, like, even with the way I interact with my partner, I would be very like, not patriarchal, but like very fatherly, you know, very brotherly. And she grew up in a very nurturing Latino family. You know, there's always food cooking and they're always dancing. So she teaches me to soften. So even the way I speak has softened. And the reason why I share this is because I also had this driver energy. And you, honestly, I'm surprised people had that feedback of you, because the way you speak is so, I don't know, relaxing to me. But people have different sensitivities. And so what I've learned to do was to, as a healer myself, is when I'm working with someone, to see how I can energetically meet them so I can meet them where it would land. So one person who's particularly sensitive, huge like masculine wound, like I really go so deeply in the nurturing energy. But when I'm talking to Alden, who is the founder of a food tech company, and he runs marathons, and he's like a big, burly, like I can be like, Alden, where are you? You know, I can be like, where are you, my friend? You know, I can speak to him, and he loves that. Like, he loves it when I speak to him that way. You need, when people like direct you need to stop. You know, I would just like speak in this kind of like athletic way with him, and he loves it. But when I'm talking to Clara, who's a lot more sensitive, very sensitive soul, I show up completely differently. But that's not me manipulating, pretending. That's just me evoking aspects of myself so that what I'm wanting to transmit can land with them. And so you can work energetically, not mentally in this way, but energetically with how you can meet with them. And then especially when they show resistance, to and not take it personally, to take it as also feedback, because it is our role to help people feel safe in that way, if hopefully that supports, and that you like my stories. I teach
No,
you
that's
stories.
beautiful, and it totally lands. Like I teach, I like you, Lotus, I teach mantra and nidra and teach restorative and do all of the things, right? But I am a sound healer by practice and a shamanic healer by practice, and but I think the thing that their feedback is giving is that when they, I'm a personality archetype, I'm a type A personality. And so I don't have time to do all of the gymnastics. I just want to get to the point. Like, we have 60 minutes to do what we need to do, people. Right? And sometimes some people can, because they want to sometimes go into victimization. And I'm like, I understand that you've worked with other people and that may have worked with them, but I want to get to the root. So let's work towards getting towards that root. And that means we have to be very direct, and we have to be purposeful in the time that we have shared together. Just like I'm trying to not monopolize the time that I have here, because I'm really inquiring so that I can help myself nourish to be a better practitioner and show up better. But when I'm being direct, it triggers them. And I understand it's the wound speaking to me. And I need to learn to soften a little bit better, to be nurturing towards it. But at the same time, I also have well, it's been this many decades that you've been pulling this root. Have you really pulled this root? Like, have you really gotten to the meat and potatoes of it? Or are you using this story to continue this feedback loop? A lot like what Dan was saying when he was talking about how people go into those progressive feedback loops when they're in that soft space. How do we get to that space without creating so much triggers where we're getting feedback, right? That's on us, because they came to us for us to be able to share what we have to offer in order to bring them to a better place. So what I've been thinking lately is, could this be their resistance to wanting to shed that problem or that belief?
Yeah, I mean, this could be its own roundtable on its own. What I will share is this is part of attuning our senses, our language, our energy, as a healer and as facilitator of sessions. Because yes, there are people who definitely we don't want to massage the wound. We have a finite amount of time, and it's a skill. What I will say, it's an energetic skill to use language, tone, to be able to draw boundaries and facilitate it. And I think as you listen more and reflect more, and I would even encourage replaying the sessions that you have, if you record it via audio, replaying it and witnessing as a neutral spectator where the subtle things are. So it's not to put it all on you, but ultimately it's a skill. I will just say it's an energetic skill set. I also have that. I resonate with you so much. I also have that, and it's something that we attune more and more. So we're able to draw the boundary, and also make it safe enough to establish that boundary, because ultimately you care about their transformation, right? And so as long as that's communicated, then you'll find the right way that it can land with them, and they feel safe enough to go, so they don't feel cornered to transformation.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Thank you so much, Lotus Sky. This has been really amazing. I want to jump in and have one more person that we said could come in, and I want to honor all of your time, because wow, it's been almost 3 hours and it's been really deep and beautiful. So yeah, thank you. And let's bring up our final that's my job. Part of me is like, ooh, I don't want it. This is so good, right? But I get to be the one to go, okay, we're honoring all in the space, you know? So thank you so much, Stacy. That was beautiful. And we'll bring Sharon on for our final question.
Hi. By the way, like 10 minutes before this started, I was getting such discomfort in my body, especially in my stomach. So thank you all I finally figured it out. Like it's totally the big energies. So thanks for the healing. I'm sure I'll figure it out with healing soon. But my question is, I'll set it up that my spiritual awakening and all of these beautiful gifts that are coming to me have happened really fast in like about the last 18 months. And, it started with like unicorns and then, it's exploded. I have like 30 different like collectives and guides that I'm working with. And I've gone deep into becoming a multidimensional healer, and I have a practice already. And, that it's been so fast. I'm still learning vernacular. And, as I observe all of you in your practices and in your shares, we're in such a diverse and unique community to begin with. And still, as I learn about, as my healing practice continues to bloom and expand in terms of, I just mean my skills, not the client work so much, but the internal skills, I feel like I'm a little bit of off script, I'm a little bit forging into maverick areas. And I kind of feel like maybe you all sort of have these unique maverick skills as well. And I sort of just wonder, how any wisdom that you might have to share with me as I move ahead, hope, with confidence, there's my little bit of lack of confidence there, but like, with confidence in these, I'm going to be a maverick. I'm going to be pulling some topics together that haven't been pulled together before. I'm using blended modalities that I don't think I've ever seen before. And I just wonder, how any wisdom you might have to share as I move forward with this.
Dan or Lisa, do one of you want to jump in?
I have a couple thoughts. You, Dan, do you want to do as well?
Yeah, you go. Yeah, I do too. You go ahead.
Okay, thanks. It's interesting. I have the same answer actually for all the questions. It's the same answer. So I think I'm rather simple. They're just two guidelines for me that I just like in just daily living. Most situations I find really useful. One is about listening to my body, how it feels, what it's saying, what it needs, and given everything that you're saying, Sharon, I'm particularly I notice myself wanting for you to take really good care of your body because it's the vessel. Our bodies are our vessels. We're here for a blip of time, and our bodies are our physical vessels for all that we're experiencing in life. So just shout out to good care for your body, for our bodies. And my other guiding question that's with me a lot is what's my business? It's very helpful.
Elaborate. I'm not sure what you mean by what's my business.
Well, that's why it's a good question.
Oh.
Yeah. If we don't know the answer to it, then that makes it an even better question. That means it's a good one to like, oh, okay. And I find it to be a particularly in this accelerated time that we're all living in, I find that to be an increasingly important and challenging question because of the paradox of this, unity consciousness. The language can never fully capture it, but in the energetic unseen world, it is this field of oneness, no boundaries. And in the physical world, they do exist and they're important, and how do we navigate them, and all that's at the same time. I just find it to be quite the, what a species we have. So just this, for me, I I mean, I've got a little Kuan Yin candle burning here as a reminder to me, mercy for all, 30, 60 degrees, because everybody's navigating that all the time, but particularly if a person's in a healing, they're in a profession or they're offering healing of any kind, it's like way complicated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you that you make me more visible. all my own challenges that's with me all the time.
Mm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I love that answer, Lisa. Those are, it's great to have a simple answer. Not that I don't specialize in simple answers. I specialize in long answers that you'll maybe be able to pull something out of it that's worthwhile. Of course, the risk with a quick accelerated growth spurt is that any movement always attracts its polarity. So any intention that we have, any desire that we have, there's always an attraction to whatever balances it. So any like quick rise is going to draw in some type of downward gravity, will be called in. This is just like the law of correspondence, perhaps. So that's one. What it brings me to is a long time ago when I was a young man, I met in Manhattan this man, Milton Glaser, who was a big graphic artist. He did a lot of the kind of the iconic graphic arts of the 60s and 70s. And I was at a talk that he gave, and he said, whenever you embark on your big life's work, when you discover what it is that you're here for, it takes 10 years to start. So you can expect that awaiting you is the real challenge of your healership that you will work through in order to arrive at where you will do your best work. And the downward gravity that will meet your rapid ascent is usually what wants to heal. That's what arrives, is something that has not been attended to, that wants healing, and will come and meet you as a healer. It will recognize that in your ascent into your healership, you are arriving at the place where you can deal with this deeper wound that no one has had the capacity to look at. And it will be in your calling. But as Lisa says, it will be in your body.
I get it.
And it will challenge to pull you off course, which is her question, what's your business? So they're great questions.
It's been an exhausting.
It's a great guide. Lisa's questions are a great guide. I'm kind of embellishing, but her questions are a really good guide to be able to navigate through the polarity that comes as we step into healership.
Thank you. Yeah, including like my worry about being judged because of my newness and my, and all of that,
Right. So who was judged? Who was judged? Who was burned? Who was hung?
Mm-hmm.
Who was excluded, exiled? These are the parts of yourself that want to be healed.
I'm in. Thank you. Whew.
Well, Sharon, I know you a little bit at least. We work together a lot, and I know that you're up for the business, whatever the business is, and it will change, and it will change in ways that you never ever saw coming. And yeah, it's beautiful. And honestly, like I guess something that I would add, not that it is needed because Lisa and Dan have been in the game much longer than I have. You know, ask people who've been in the game for a long time. How'd it go when you were going through that ego death? Because that descent, that gravity is very real, and it's very real for those of us who are called to where our business is around the ascension, descension. It just is that way, you know. So ask us when you're in the middle of it, hey, what remind me where my life preserver is. Remind me my anchor, remind me my touchstone, and we'll remind you. I say that from being down at the very bottom of the well and going, Dan, are you around here? And Dan would show up and be like, I'm here. This is where I work, you know, like another day at the office, but you'll find us there, you know. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder of support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Does this feel complete? Is there anything else that needs to be spoken before we close this out? Yeah. Everybody need a nap? Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. So I have a few little things for our reminders for the people who are listening, that we will have the next 2 days, 9 a.m. Pacific. So different time completely the next 2 days, okay? 9 a.m. Pacific, Thursday and Friday. And we'll go the same time with generally the same structure. And what else am I supposed to say, Lara? I'm looking at my notes. Tomorrow is Kristen, Lena, Elizabeth, Ralph, and Eichel Francis. It will be a whole different portal, whole different vibration. Please come. It's going to be really beautiful. And what a treat. If you don't know who they are, you will know after tomorrow because they're bold and beautiful human beings. I think if you have questions that arise or you're looking, you know, I heard some people like, where's the dashboard? Lara put the link in here for you that has all the information. That'll also be very important where you will access the gifts and low-cost offerings that everyone that's part of Beyond the Thinking Mind who's speaking, all the people you see here are offering some really, really beautiful gifts for you through this process. And please, if they resonate with you, go check that out and find a way. We're weaving the community. We're always weaving the heart. So please find a way to reach out to these incredible souls. Thank you all. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lotus Sky. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lara. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been such an honor to share space with you and just attempt like what is beyond this thing that I carry around. It's been a joy. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Christina. What a beautiful group. Lovely being with you and this community. Really beautiful job, and to your whole team, Lindsay and Laura and the others to guide us into this. It's been really a true pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Pleasure. And to everyone else, Lisa, Dan, Sarah, Lara.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. What a blessing it's been. Thank you. Hope to be with everybody again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina, for putting this together and the invitation. And so good to meet you all.
Awesome. All right. Be well wherever you are in the world. Have a good day or a good evening, and take really good care of your body, as a really smart woman once said on this call. Take really good care. All right, everyone. Thank you. Mwah. Be well. Bye. I think you have to close the call down, Lara. I don't think I can do it.